So we have been getting a lot of questions on what is or who is an NVOCC, who is a forwarder, who is a CHA, what is the difference between them, what is the difference between a main line and an NVOCC. So let's understand this. It is very simple if you understand this, right? Now, first let's start with what is a main line. There are some companies like One Line, Maersk, CMA, RCL. These people have their own ship and they have their own containers also. So normally what happens, say in Chennai there is an RCL vessel which is coming, right? Now in this vessel, a lot of people have used RCL containers which will go on and sit on an RCL vessel, but it does not mean that they'll only load RCL containers into an RCL vessel. There is a lot of space left. They will be taking other containers of other shipping lines also, right? So a main line is somebody who have their own ship. At the same time, they have their own containers also. So they will load these containers into their own ship. But assume a case where the RCL ship has left, but there are still some RCL containers waiting at the port. And the next ship which came was not of RCL. It was, say, for example, of One Line, right? Then what happens? Then even RCL containers also go on a One Line vessel, right? So this keeps on happening. It does not mean that if the container is of RCL, it has to sit on a RCL vessel itself. So vessels are there who have vessels as well as containers, right? So a main line is somebody who have their own ship. But yes, own ship, when the RCL vessel comes and if there are RCL containers, they might give preference to their own containers, RCL containers. But it doesn't matter for them. They are there to carry the containers, carry the full load and go to their destination. Now what is an NVOCC? NVOCC, the expansion itself says that I am a non-vessel operating container carriers. So non-vessel, which means what? They don't have vessel of their own. They only have containers. So they will give you containers. They will tell you, I will give you containers. So in this case, what happens is normally, say some companies, say Goodrich for example is an NVOCC. They have containers. Say they have some 100 containers in Chennai. Everybody has booked that containers. It has sat on a vessel going to Singapore. Now all the 100 containers which were there in Chennai sat on a vessel and went to Singapore. It got unloaded there, went into the customer, and then the container got free. Now what happens to these 100 containers? So then good companies like Goodrich, all these NVOCC companies also, they will have an office or an agent designated at different countries. So that office will take care of those 100 containers from Singapore. Where can it go to? So these containers are always on the move, but they don't have their own vessels. They book vessels, they load it onto the container and then it goes to the destination. So there is a clear difference between NVOCC and main lines. A lot of people actually, especially importers might tell you don't use an NVOCC, use a main line, use RCL, use One Line. They might have some preference. The reason that they have this preference is because the main lines are normally bigger companies. Because why? They have their own ships. So people who have their own ships and own containers are supposed to be big companies. So they are more responsible. They will give priority and things like that. Some NVOCs, there is a risk also. If the company is not doing that great, they might not take this seriously. The container has onboarded. Especially, I'll give you an example. Assume that your containers is going to Vietnam and it is an NVOCC. Now you know that containers will not go through a vessel directly to Vietnam. It will probably first go to Singapore as a transshipment port, or say Port Klang in Malaysia as a transshipment port. In Port Klang, it has to be connected to another vessel, which goes to Ho Chi Minh, to Vietnam. So that NVOCC might not take this job seriously. They are not able to get slots in other vessels. Other vessels are sidelining them because there is a lot of congestion and things like that. So these kind of things exist. I hope you have understood what is the difference between an NVOCC, a non-vessel operating container carriers, versus what is a main line. Now we have two more businesses. Who are they? Forwarders and CHA. Who are these forwarders and who are these CHA? Now forwarders are nothing but they are mere agents. What is their role? They keep in touch with how we have agents for, say for example, rice or what export agents. A lot of agents are there who actually work with particular companies and businesses, right? So forwarders are nothing but agents. They liaise with these NVOCCs, these main lines and all. They understand what is their ocean freight, how many containers are there, and they kind of get orders or bookings for these NVOCCs and main lines, right? So they get the orders, they are agents. So sometimes what happens, a few companies like NVOCCs or the main lines might tell you that we don't want to directly deal with you. You go to this forwarder, let the order come through the forwarder. The forwarder might be accumulating a lot of orders and then giving to these lines. So a forwarder is an agent. But then what is the difference between a forwarder and a CHA? Now you should understand that CHA's role is only at the customs house, in that warehouse. Once you book the containers with the forwarder or with NVOCs or with the main line, you have to give those details to this CHA. The CHA will then call for those containers which you have booked. He will call the containers, he will do the get the fumigation done, custom clearance done, papers, shipment papers done, fumigation and stuffing of cargo into the containers, sealing the cargo, again putting it on the truck and sending inside the port. All this will be done by the CHA. So CHA you need for this process anyway. But assume that you are doing say 1 containers or 2 containers or 5 containers of a particular cargo only in a month to particular country, say for example Singapore. In many cases, you might not even need a forwarder. If you tell the CHA, because these people have contacts, right? So if you tell your CHA, he will himself might act like a forwarder, or he might have his friend who is a forwarder and say that, okay, hey, this customer wants, exporter wants this many containers to Singapore, what is the ocean freight and things like that, and he might do everything, right? So when your bill comes finally, you know that ocean freight is always billed to you in US dollars, but they are going to convert the US dollars into INR and then bill you in INR itself, but in the invoice they will show you that the ocean freight is in US dollars. So CHA is always going to take care of your CHA's bill. Your invoice from your CHA will look something like transportation charges, custom clearance charges, PQ charges, fumigation charges, silica gel inside the container, craft paper inside the containers, seal charges, line seal, custom seal. These kind of cost components will be in his invoice. Whereas a forwarder's invoice is simple. Ocean freight for 5 containers is this much, terminal handling charges is this much, BL charges is this much. If you have surrendering cost of surrendering the BL, surrender charges is this much. So this is how an invoice will look like. So understand friends, there are 4 parties involved in this. There is a main line, there is a NVOCC, there is a forwarder, and then there is a CHA. Sometimes there is no hard and fast rule that you have to work with all 4 or you have to work with at least 3. No, you can probably directly book your containers with a direct line and appoint a CHA. CHA is one that you will definitely need because you have to handle the cargo, right? So CHA you cannot avoid. But you can decide whether you want to use a forwarder, NVOCC or a main line. So that is what you have to decide. For example, if you are booking something with Evergreen, a shipping line, you can directly book with Evergreen. You don't need any forwarder. But if you are booking with CMA CGM, for example, CMA CGM sometimes might say come through a forwarder. We will not be able to offer directly unless you are a very big exporter needing a lot of containers, etc. Right? So this is all about it, my friends. One last note I want to add here is that the bulk shipment which happens from Kakinada, I will make a separate video out of this. There is something called as bulk and then there is something called as break bulk, right? What is the difference between bulk and break bulk? How does bulk meaning there is no containers involved at all. It is directly loaded into a vessel. But what is bulk, break bulk? I will very soon make a video on this, my friends. Thank you so much. I hope this was informative. Please help spread the word. Share this with your friends, partners, whoever is looking to get into the field of rice exports or exports in particular. Thank you.